Recyard, Women's Prison Podcast, where we are live on the Recyard every Wednesday night. Hey, everybody. It is Wednesday night, and we are live on the Recyard Women's Prison Podcast. We're happy to have you. I'm Marci Marie.
I'm Toonche.
And you're slow. You were slow with that.
Still, honey, I'm trying to do it real cool and smooth.
Toonche, we have Audra Lee she was here ahead of the game, and Shaquille Oatmeal. Both of these ladies were in the comment section before we even started, and we are so grateful for y'all. Thanks for joining.
Hot.
Yeah.
Already. I love it.
So we are talking about unit lockdowns.
God.
Yeah,
we touched on that a little last week, and we're like, we gotta talk about it next week. So here we are. It'll be some insightful things for y'all.
It will be. We get a lot of questions about what is lockdown. Can my loved one call me when it's locked down? Why can't I visit on lockdown? And all of these kind of things. Listen, Audra said your introduction was perfect. And I don't know if you paid her to say this.
I can't. Look, my charm and my jazziness it's natural, so I appreciate it. Carrie's here.
Yes. Casey White is here. Stephen is here. We have a lot of our regular community is hopping on, and we're so happy to see you guys. Casey White's here, and we're just really happy to see everybody.
I gotta let y'all know who is here from that. It says Facebook user. That's from our private Lioness group, and Ariana and my wife Lori, they're here. Miss Blaylock, April is here. So we're excited to see everybody join us for this. God, yes, I hope we don't give y'all flashbacks in a bad way when we start talking about lockdown. It can be, Marci's going to trigger all of us in a minute when she plays a video clip. So
we do have a video that triggered both of us, a video that we found on that clock app. And it did trigger both of us. So I want to do a recap because we said we were going to do an update on what has happened in the week in Texas prisons and with Toonche and I and with our organization Lioness. So with that said, we do have an advocate that watches us, and he's advocating for the Oregon DOC, and he said he went out and posted flyers around the Capitol, and he also did some big things. I think that he went to a rally. I think I saw that. So way to go, Stephen. We are on your side for sure, and we are rooting for you and for change in your local area also. So with that, Toonche, what's up? What's new?
What's new, girl? The week was jam-packed. Let's hit it right out the gate. Some good news. Let's try some good news first. So we heard from some ladies from the Lane Murray unit, several ladies. We both did a lot of time. So we've got the network going. Lioness has over 200 members. And guess what? One day last week, they just showed up at Lane Murray to put in temporary AC and tempered air in certain parts of the unit, cell blocks and such. So they hear us, Marci. I mean, I was shocked. I was like, we had to confirm this several times for me to be like, are the girls just confused? Like, no, they're not.
Right. The first way we kind of found out about that is that somebody posted a comment on our Facebook page, and it was a screenshot of an electronic message she received from her loved one. And so with one person saying something, We were like, and then that person, not somebody that we personally knew, we were like, I don't know, something's happening. And then that electronic message even went as far to say, well, a guard told me, but we know how that goes.
Right.
Just, the staff doesn't know what's going on often. Like, it's often that we all find out at the same time.
Yes.
Correctional officers and incarcerated people. But then our correspondence, what is Diane has an official title
She
with
does.
Linus.
Yeah, she's the
And I want to give her
correspondence
that credit.
Mhm.
Correspondence what?
manager.
Oh yes, she's the go-to lady because
Oh,
she
yeah.
handles all of our incoming mail from the women's prisons, and she's a freaking champion because it's a lot of mail.
Yeah.
And she responds, she sorts out issues that need to be addressed, and she's a champion at it, and hats off to her. But she started getting the messages from the ladies, and then they just started coming in. And we were super, super excited. And it's just like Shelley says right here. She's saying that's a start. We're being heard. And I
Right.
think that's it. That's exactly. So it sends a message, I hope, to everybody incarcerated in Texas that, number one, we are being heard. Y'all are being heard. People care about you, and people are out here fighting for you. And what's not going to happen is that we're not going to slow down.
That's right. That's right. Like y'all, I want to put this into perspective for y'all. And Marci knows when it comes to the women, we are last for everything. When they put in the phone system, it was literally the women's units that were last. Okay. So when they gave tablets out, they did give tablets to Lane Murray and Henley as a test run. But that was kind of an anomaly, right? Like the commissary trucks, the men's orders get filled before ours. That's why we didn't have certain things, because by the time they got to filling the women's units orders, there was nothing left in the warehouse. It happened all the time about everything. And, and I told Marci, I said, oh, girl, it's no coincidence that they started at Lane Murray, right? They've had 2 women die there, and they have a group of women that did time there that are wearing them out. I didn't use profanity. They're wearing them out, and they know we are not going to stop. So it's like, we got to do something. And so that's evidence. And the women on the inside are just, God, y'all, it just means so much to know that there are other women fighting for you. And we fight for everybody, right? Men and women. But specifically, the women have never had a group on the outside to solely devote to their needs and care, and especially to be other system impacted women. It means so much to them. Thank you, Andrea.
Yeah.
Thank you for that wonderful comment. As a side note,
And I would never have highlighted a Taylor Swift comment on here, but I'm highlighting it because I want to highlight Andrea, because she is a Linus member as well. She is someone that has rallied and championed. She was at the press conference and the rally, sweating it out with us on Tuesday the 18th. And so we talked about that last week, but so that's all the good stuff, right? But the fact of the matter is, there are still tens of thousands of incarcerated Texans that are living without any climate control, and that are very much at risk getting sick and still, quite frankly, dying right now. And so what we're not going to do is let this small win distract us. We are still pushing forward with keeping that fight and that momentum going, and we're not going to stop. We're not going to stop until every incarcerated Texan is living in safe temperatures.
For sure. Y'all remember that part of Shawshank Redemption when Andy's writing for funds for a library for books, and he finally gets the legislature to send them a little check, and he was like, yay. And so he was like, well, I'm just going to send 2 letters a week now. Like, he wasn't satisfied with the little bitty tiny, like, leave us alone, here's a little money. He doubled down on his efforts. And that's what Marci's talking about. Like, we're not going anywhere. It's not going to distract us. We're going to celebrate the small wins, but no, we want more. No. You got to come on with more.
Right. We want every Texan incarcerated in Texas to not be cooked alive. Every single one, to live in safe temperatures. And we're not asking for comfortable temperatures. We are asking for 85 degrees and below. You're not very comfortable at 75, 76, 77. Any one of us that walked into our apartment in the middle of August and our thermostat was on 80 degrees, we would not be comfortable, but we would be safe.
Right.
And that's what we're asking for safe temperatures.
Right.
So,
and, wait, I got to share with
Yeah.
everybody what the lady at the conference told us. She said air conditioning until abolition, right? So until we can rely and build a new system to deal with the things that society needs to heal, when it's not a carceral system, until that day happens, we're going to make sure that the people that are trapped inside our prison system are safe.
yes, I want to say, so I'm telling, because when this happened, when the realization hit that we had gotten dozens of confirmations that this actually was happening, I had a busy day. I had an outside project I had been working on. I was out of town, and Brittany and I had been running, and it's like we settled in for the day and we looked, and it just kind of hit us, and both of us just cried. Like it was so much of that. I mean, it just feels amazing to be able to be maybe contributing to this cause that's quite literally saving lives, like Audra is saying right here. And when I called one of my sons and was talking to him about it, he said, Mom, I don't take away from the value of what y'all are doing, because y'all are very literally preventing people from dying, because the Texas prison system, they are dying. So, Stephen, thank you for reminding me. You guys, we are here to talk about unit lockdowns, and I appreciate every single person that is joining us. Please remember to like the video, comment on the video. If you're watching us live, when the live ends, we would really appreciate you sharing it with your friends. And then if you're listening to us, don't forget to leave a review. We appreciate all of those things so very much. And I'm hearing some other rumors about possible other units starting to get cooling units. So hopefully next week we'll come back and give even more updates on this.
All right. So are we ready to dig into lockdown?
Yeah, have to do it.
All right. Well, Marci, let's start it like this. So what happens? What happened? You got your day-to-day life in prison. You're going about your business, and it's almost close to time. We usually have 2 biannual lockdowns. You kind of can gauge the time of year usually. And so everybody starts either stockpiling or whittling things down, like and everybody's anxious, right? Are we going on lockdown? The closer it gets, every time count is delayed, every time something is a little weird, is it now? And then boom, it happens.
And it's so frustrating. Those weeks when it's been about 5.5, 6 months since your last biannual lockdown, the anxiety on the entire unit elevates, and everybody's talking about, I think we're going down Monday. And it drives you nuts. I remember just being like, I don't care. Like, I don't want to know your prediction. I don't care. It's going to happen, and we have no choice or say over the matter. But then you will be sound asleep one morning and this happens.
It's 7 in the fucking morning.
Take your laptops and electronics out the bag. If you got a hoodie on, take it off. Take it off. How many times?
God.
Toonche, that was one of your TikTok videos that you had found, and you put the caption over that. This is lockdowns. This is a prison lockdown. And I was just scrolling through TikTok one day, and that came on, and it instantly, my chest tightened, and that being the way that officer, maybe was an officer. That was at a school. It could have been a school official or an officer. But those were kids going into school, first of all. So that's a whole nother issue, right? But that is absolutely the way that we were talked to in there. So hearing that was very triggering, but that you could be woken up that way from a dead sleep.
Oh yeah.
And it would be, everybody up, pack your stuff. You got 10 minutes, pack all your stuff, line up at the door. I mean, yeah. No, you can't go to the bathroom. No showers. Showers are closed. Out of the shower.
Turn the water off. And you guys, so back in the day, lockdown was locked down for 2 or 3 weeks until the unit was completely done. They changed it where they called it rolling lockdowns, where they would lock dorms down at a time, which seemed really dumb because like we just passed from one dorm to the next. But it's like you wake up, it's here, you know, you got your little Johnny, which is a brown paper sack with your boiled egg and your peanut butter sandwich and maybe some dry cereal. Water's been turned off. You're not flushing anything. You're not getting in the shower. And it's just like Marci said, get up, start packing your stuff. Oh, and by the way, you're in a gown, which always delighted me. I'm sure it delighted Brett and other butch girls that I hated that gown with everything in my soul. But for some reason to them, that was easier to search if we were all in gowns. And so you're packing up your stuff and everybody's running to the door to get in line to get out of the dorm. So Marci, how much stuff did you have?
Well, before we get into that, can we talk about the purpose?
Sure. Yeah.
So I mean, right. So and I thought that maybe I read TDCJ's policy requires 1 a year, and it's up to the warden if they do 2.
Yeah.
Every unit I've always done 2. And then I think that the purpose is basically they are checking for dangerous contraband. They are looking for weapons, drugs, cell phones, this type of, like, that's the purpose. They are locking down the unit, and what's going to happen is they are going to search each individual's property, touch every single item that every incarcerated person owns, and in addition to, good grief. Sorry, y'all. In addition to that, they are going to search the entire prison, the entire unit. They're looking in the chapel, they're looking in the ceilings, they're looking in the education building, they're looking in medical, anywhere where they think something might be hidden, they're searching for it. And so so that's the purpose.
The annual or the biannual lockdowns. Now, if there's a disciplinary lockdown, that means something really bad is out of control at the unit, something serious has happened. So they put everybody on no movement lockdown. And if they start searching, then they're looking for weapons, they're looking, or punishment. A lot of times, like if there was a real bad fight when they broke that officer's jaw in the kitchen, they put Mountain View on lockdown. They came in there and tore our dorms apart. And now they didn't make us leave. Like the annual lockdowns we're talking about, we have to pack up our property and march it out the door, either to the chapel or the gym, which is usually across the unit, right? In the rain, heat. Riverside just did theirs, Marci, in the heat. That's what I told you, y'all, about Serena. Serena's like, dude, people are passing out. They've got ICSs, which is like a immediate control of the situation. People are falling out from the heat. And I'm like, what idiot scheduled y'all's lockdown at 2:00 in the afternoon when it's 110 degrees, because you got to tote all that property and put it on a table for that officer to go through, one thing at a time. And then you're going to get strip searched pretty intensely.
Yeah, it's pretty serious. And you touched on some of the reasons that they have a lockdown. They also have they might lock down your unit if there was an escape on another unit, when
Yeah.
that definitely happens. Or several years ago when that did somebody call an elected official
Somebody
with a
called
threat on
Whitmire.
the phone?
Yeah.
Yes, I didn't know it was Whitmire.
Yep.
Oh,
Mhm.
yeah. And so when that happened, people were locked down. Like, that's what lockdown is basically. Just, you are confined to wherever your bed is. If that looks like a cell to you, you are confined in your cell. If it's a cubicle, you are locked down to your cubicle. That's like lockdown. And then
Mhm.
searched. So that's how. And it's extremely stressful. There are a
Yes.
lot of ways that it's handled that is completely degrading. And you touched on the gowns. You can imagine how that might be for the transgender men that we had housed with us, having to wear a gown. Mentally, that was not good for them, right? Showers were closed. Rachel just said, she said something about taking rinse off in a bowl. There are no showers. So, Toonche, you talked about back in the day it being a flat lockdown where the whole unit, and then they moved. But I want to say that the rolling lockdowns, that wasn't a Huntsville decision. That was unit to unit. So some wardens, we would get a new warden and go from a rolling lockdown back to a 2 or 3 week in our cubicle with Johnny's, with no showers. Yeah. I mean, that's how it would happen. It was so ridiculous. And it never accomplished what it set out to be. So I'll say
Right.
that. Any contraband that we still had after lockdown.
Right.
It was so silly. What it ended up being was people maybe getting rid of their empty chip bags and their trash.
Right. But all
So
the major things, no, we can talk about. I'll tell you some stuff that was found and how people got away with things. But Marci, I need us to talk about. I want to know how much property you had to tote. And so
here we go.
sometimes they would bring us the cart and we could put it in the cart. Sometimes they'd bring the tractor.
No, not
But most of the time,
sometimes.
you have to carry it, and whatever you can't carry, it gets thrown away. So you better be able to carry all of it. So I managed to have 2 commissary bags on my arms with my stuff, and I was out the door.
Okay. First of all, we have both been incarcerated where we were housed in cells and dorms. They move us around a lot. We've both lived in both of those kind of environments. How much I had some property, Toonche.
Okay.
I had quite a bit of property, but I'm strong and
Okay.
I could carry it.
I want to know tell us how many bags.
I mean, I probably 4 bags, and then I had my gender box and my fan around my neck. So I would have 2 bags tied together with a sock, because you couldn't have the knot in them when you went through contraband. And let me say, on Lane Murray, you weren't putting your stuff in a cart or on a tractor ever, unless you had a medical pass saying you had a restriction keeping you from carrying things. That wasn't happening. So I had some stuff, Toonche. And guess what? I still helped people that needed help. So let's talk about that while you were strolling down the street. Because what y'all don't know.
Go ahead. See, that's the universe trying to close up your windpipe to keep you from saying something.
No,
Right.
no, I tried to mute it. I thought it was muted and I didn't mean to do that. So I apologize for y'all. And somebody just said tying up our stuff in sheets. Yes, we would lay our sheet out and a bunch of stuff would go in a sheet. So that
Oh
would be
yeah.
part of your pack. Some people got creative because you had
Mm-hmm.
to pack everything you own, every single item that you owned, nothing left behind. If it was left behind, it was going in the trash. So you carried everything: college books, letters from home,
Mm-hmm.
pictures, clothes, makeup, commissary items. And you would want to have a lot of commissary because you weren't going to get to go for a while because there was
Mm-hmm.
no store during that time. So it's not like we ate up all our commissary before lockdown. No, in fact, we accumulated more than we would normally carry. So it was no joke. And then you had to carry it across the unit. If you were on the Dr. Lane Murray unit and you lived in F dorm and they were doing lockdown in the gym,
Oh
you were
boy.
walking half
A
a
long
mile
time. Yeah.
with all of your stuff, carrying it. And if you stop or put stuff down or you're getting yelled at. If you leave some behind, you're not going back easily to
Yeah.
get it.
And it's probably in the trash.
Yeah, that happens. And there would be like on Lane Murray, if you worked in field squad, you often helped with that. Like your bosses, or I often helped with lockdown. So I had a few advantages. Like I could often put my stuff in the cart because I was responsible for taking the carts. So
Mm-hmm.
there were
Mm-hmm.
often times I did that, but I still carried more stuff than not because there are people, guys, everyone that's incarcerated is not capable of carrying their stuff, even if it's only one full bag, because there are quite a few elderly or disabled women. And so we would kind of be assigned to run and get their stuff, run it to the front, put it in the cart, get it unloaded, sit it with them. So,
Which is crazy. Y'all could help them, but you couldn't help them in their wheelchair and just leave them in the rain to push themselves. But you could go get their property because it helped move the process along for the officers.
yeah, yeah. I want to talk about this, Amy, and so we're going to come back to this, how your stuff can go missing when officers pack your stuff. So we're not going to forget that. We're going to come back to that. But once you get all your property there, so let's definitely talk about right now in this heat wave, in this triple degree weather, where incarcerated Texans are quite literally dying. We have some units on lockdown right now.
Mm-hmm.
So they're overheated. Their bodies are already in survival mode, trying to stay hydrated, trying to literally survive. And now they have to, in this 125 temperature dorm, pack all of their belongings and then walk out through the heat to sit in an unair conditioned gym.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's insane. It's insane. So what happens? What about searching? What does that look like, Tooch?
Yeah. So once you finally get out the door, get your property down to the gym or the chapel, wherever they're doing it, you line. This is how it went at Mountain View and Riverside. So there are tables set up, and there's two officers, or if they're short, there's one officer, and they got the gloves on. Right. It's usually the host squad bosses and the field bosses. So they're not the nicest. They're the worst officers to me. Always on the unit was the field squad. They just were different. And so everybody gets in a line. So everybody's running to try to get to the table that they think would serve them better. Of course, the lieutenant's like, no, you're going to hear everybody. You just start lining up. So everybody's got their bags, and one by one, you go to the table and you put your items on the table. Now, it's weird at Riverside, they would make you turn around. Like you couldn't watch them. They would make you turn around with your back to the table while they searched. Mountain View didn't do that. We just had to stand there. And, the thing that I dreaded as they touched my stuff, and this goes kind of to the point of why I didn't keep things, not just because I was so stressed out. Property is something that, and I'm sure they do this to the men, but Marci, I think you could agree with me. Property is something that they hold over our head, that they threaten us with, that they stress us out about. And women were, we've talked about physical mail recently. They've changed their policy where they're not going to get physical mail anymore. So our property was all we had. And so they would use it, hold it over our head, whether it was compliance. Oh, I can't sit in the day room. I can't go to rec because my stuff's out of compliance. And it just made me so angry that I minimized every which way they could mess with me about something. Because, officers going through your pictures. Oh, is that your mom? Oh, this your girlfriend? And I'm going to get angry. I know myself. So they come to my stuff. I've got a bag of beans, my appliances, and one envelope with a couple of pictures in it. And they're like, dang, Toon, you don't have anything else? And I'm like, no, I'm done. But, the more stuff you have, the longer that process is. And they're going through every single piece of it, taking squeeze. And man, there's shampoo, hygiene stuff all over the place. It's a disaster because they're just tearing through this stuff without any type of consideration that this is your personal property.
Yeah, I definitely experienced that too. There were two bosses that, first of all, I'll say it's the field squad bosses that are often put in charge of searching property. And it's field squad bosses on a unit that are known for being the most petty and harsh. They're used to being bosses out in the field, watching people bend over and pick weeds. Like it's they're there. So anyways, there were two bosses where I was, and that were really known for being extra petty, two women, and they were sitting next to each other at lockdown, one of them searching my property. And as she's searching it, man, and you have to imagine, this is kind of earlier on, my marriage is falling apart. You can imagine the letters from home coming, it's very personal mail that she's reading. And she's reading it out loud.
Mm-hmm.
So my entire dorm of 125 women are sitting in the gym, and she's reading it out loud. And then she would look at a picture and turn it over, read the back, and hand it over to the other officer that was sitting next to her. And it was just so extremely humiliating, and I just can't explain the anger that rose up in me. I was completely out of control in the situation. There was nothing I could do about it. It was more than a search for dangerous contraband. It was an attack on me as a person, frankly, is how I felt about it.
For sure. And this is, Marci, what we try to highlight with all of the issues, right? Is that I have no doubt that men have experiences that we can't understand. But the unique thing about women incarcerated is the level of psychological abuses and terrors and microaggressions that we experienced all the time in everything. And lockdown was one of the things we dreaded most. And like I said, that's why I didn't keep anything. Like, I'm not keeping letters and pictures from my family or the wonderful handwritten letters my pen pal sent me for years, right? I think it still hurts her to this day to know that I didn't save any of them. She's got a whole box of mine. And I'm like, you don't understand. We had a very small space, but that terror of lockdown and what you just described, it made me go to the extreme where I got rid of everything to avoid that because of I know it. Like, while you're talking, I'm like, the absolute rage and helplessness of just not being able to do anything or say anything while someone is antagonizing you, making comments about your family's pictures. And it wasn't about security. It wasn't.
Well, that's exactly right. It absolutely had nothing to do with safety or security. It was a level of abuse, emotional and mental abuse, and a way to break us down for
Mhm.
certain. And so this might be a good opportunity to come back to Amy's question about why she has a daughter that's incarcerated and she's on the hobby unit. And so, first of all, Amy, much love to you and your daughter. Why does her daughter's stuff go missing when she goes on medical chain or gets sent to SEG? And that's that same type of officer that is abusing their authority and their power by reading our personal mail out loud in front of everyone. That same type of officer, when they pack up somebody, when they pack up their belongings, that's stuff gets lost.
Yeah.
Stuff gets lost.
Lost.
Right.
Right.
Quote, lost. Yeah. And so I've seen it firsthand, a very malicious attack where officers are quite literally throwing stuff in the trash can as they're packing someone's stuff. And if that person is fortunate enough, hobby's a little different because it's cell block. So those ladies don't have as much access to get around. But at Lane Murray in the open dorms, if that happened and there was stuff on trash in the trash that was, you knew was your friends, you waited for that officer to walk out. Everybody kind of watched. You'd grab up their stuff and you'd try to hold on to it for them, which was risky also, because if you got caught with someone else's property, that's a disciplinary case. Like, it's just a whole thing.
Oh yeah,
So
right. And people would ask, well, why are they throwing it away? Well, some of them do it to be hateful. A lot of them do it because they're lazy. Because every single item is supposed to go on that property inventory, and they're not going to do that. So I'm just going to throw this in the trash. Period.
yeah, there's a lady on TikTok that's a correctional officer at a county jail, and she puts them on blast. Man, she takes pictures of like the trash can. She's like, that's inmate mail right there. You know, that's inmate mail. That's they pissed somebody off, and all their mail at mail call it went here instead. Like, she just puts them on complete blast. I'll be surprised if she's able to keep her job. She puts things on such blast. So yeah. And so with this, back to this lockdown, I want to talk about I have a strip search story from Brittany. My girlfriend Brittany, did about 11 years total, and she's been on several different units. Every unit kind of does their own thing, right? Because TDCJ has policy that's like an umbrella policy, but the units have a lot of discretion on how they operate their own unit, right?
Mm-hmm.
So she's at hobby unit at this point. It was the end of her sentence, and it was a certain lockdown where they had them get in a group and strip as a group, which is how I did my strip searches at Plain State Jail. We were actually in a circle in the day room for our lockdown strip search there. But they were wherever they were. They set their property down, got completely naked, had to leave their clothes at their property, walk to the front and around one of those, what is that? A metal detector pole. Do you remember when they started bringing in those metal detector poles?
And the chairs
So
they had to sit.
naked, you had to walk around the metal detector. So you're just walking in front of everyone, completely undressed, completely. That's how they did their strip search. She said that they only did that one time while she was there, but she said after that was at the end of her 11. So she'd done 7, 8, 9 years and she was fine. 10 years, she was fine. One of the last ones that she did made her feel more humiliated than she had ever felt her entire incarceration, which is really saying something. Like, you guys figured out how to take it to a new level,
right,
of humiliation.
Well, and that's what it always seemed like, is that lockdown was even though it was security and it's the biannual or whatever, it was this opportunity to just terrorize us as women, to do things like that. And I remember, see, the rest of it is once you Oh, your stuff's been searched. Get it in your bags. Leave it. And at Mountain View, we were in the gym, and the bathrooms were like kind of like at the bottom. It was a very old school setup gym. And so what would be locker rooms, right? So we were down there, and there's officers. Sometimes there would just be one of our officers stripping, like, up and down. I don't care. I'm tired, right? Like, up and down means just show me, drop your pants. That's it. But we would often have staff from Hilltop, because Hilltop was Mountain View's sister unit. We shared wardens. And the Hilltop officers we just absolutely abhorred, because you talk about petty. They were insanely petty. They oversee 2 programs over there: the youthful, I hate using this word, but it's what it's called, youthful offender program, and the sex offender program. That's crazy, right? Those are at the same unit, but they're separated. They're supposed to be separated. Anyway, those officers were just super petty and in particularly degrading. Like, our officers at Mountain View, for the most part, we had some bad apples, but it was a very strict professional, get up. And I remember we went down there. There was a group of us in our dorm to get stripped. And there was this young officer, Marci, and she was kind of a butch chick, right? Ruby Rose looking kind of chick, and she's cocky, and she's got a little collar flip. Y'all can tell I got an attitude right now while I'm telling it. And she's with this group of Hilltop officers that are just degrading us, talking about how we smell, how disgusting we are. We smell like mackerel. And I remember one of the girls in the dorm said, "Ma'am, we haven't had a shower in 4 days. And we're in this hot gym. And I mean, I don't understand." And so then she got yelled at and cussed at and threatened to be written up. And so anyway, this butch girl's like, she's watching me. And so I'm doing everything I can, Marci, to be, yes, ma'am, here's this, be very robotic. And she's like, "Are you ill?" And I said, "Ma'am." She said, "Are you anorexic or something?" In front of everybody. "Are you anorexic?" And I am so mad. I was like, "No, ma'am." She goes, "Well, you look really ill. Like, your bones are sticking out." And people have always made comments about my body because I'm so thin and bony. It doesn't bother me a whole lot, but when officers made comments about my body, it really bothered me. And so she's like, "Well, you're just, you just look like one of those people from World War II. Like, you just have bones sticking out. Like, are you sick?" And she's like, "You need to go to medical. I think you need to drop a form to medical." And here I am. I said, "Well, yes, ma'am, that's a good idea. I mean, I can. Sure." Oh, and so I'm just trying to put on this happy face and, "Yes, ma'am." Oh, because I'm not going to let you see that you're angry, that you're getting to me. And it's like, the more I did that, the harder she tried. And then eventually we, got dressed and packed up and back to the dorm. And that night I was so mad, I just laid in my bed and cried, because there's this sense of helplessness that there is nothing. I mean, you can punch them in the face or you can do something, but when you're trying to do the right thing and get home, it's not an option. So you just have to take it. And that was what I dreaded with lockdown, because stuff like that happened all through lockdown.
Yeah, there were people though that couldn't take it, that they were pushed to their limit, and they ended up in handcuffs, and their property ended up lost, and they ended up, I mean, it just would turn in, escalate, right? We had a lockdown. So I told you our field squad was kind of in charge of the searching and running the lockdown. Our field squad lieutenant was in charge of running it. He handled it, right? And so there had been a bunch of grievances. Something happened where there was a bunch of grievances that made him mad, basically. And he told his staff, "Write up every piece of contraband you find, write it up." So every piece of contraband is a pretty broad term in TDCJ policy. It is anything that cannot be purchased on commissary and is not issued by the state to the incarcerated person. And it is also any item that has been altered or is not being used as its intended use. So if I have a hair tie and it's not tying my hair, but it's closing my coffee ground bag, then that can be contraband and it can be taken. And
Right.
so we were getting cases there. I was on a unit with 1,200 something women. This was my first lockdown. So I was pretty shocked. My tennis shoes got taken because I didn't have my property slip. And so I was naive enough to believe that my family could call and say, hey, those are her shoes. Like, I sent money for them. She bought them and she needs her tennis shoes back. Not only did they get taken, but I didn't have any other shoes. So I was barefoot for like 3 days on that unit.
Jesus.
It was insane.
God.
It was insane. So anyways, as my family's calling the unit, they're like, yeah, 600 and something cases got written. 600 and something. Half of the unit got written up that lockdown. So that we were getting cases for hair ties, but the coldest case on that lockdown that I saw written was somebody. So if your grandma passes away, they might send you like the obituary cut out of the newspaper or whatever. Well, any newspaper clipping, people send those in and the mailroom lets us have them. But guess what? It's a piece of newspaper that's altered from its original form because it's cut out of a real newspaper. So it's contraband, even though it very much came to you through the mail and very much was inspected by people and hand delivered to you by an officer. Right. You can get written up for it. It's so crazy. But anyways, this lady's grandma had sent her a picture of Jesus cut out of a magazine, and she put a little note on there praying for you. I think that she was Hispanic, and I want to say the note said, praying for you, mija. And that picture of Jesus, that with a note from her grandma on it, was confiscated, put in a red chain bag. You had to write a piece of paper. Like, it's paperwork involved with this process, y'all. Right. It's not just, So all of that. And she got a case and went to court, got found guilty. And
those people are going to hell. They're going to hell. They're going to hell, Marci.
It's crazy.
Come on, man. And really, like, I'm sure that men experience petty things, but there is no way that I believe that men endure the kind of trifling, petty, psychological, weird stuff that we went through. I do at least want to lighten it a little bit to say a story of how someone got some tennis shoes that she didn't have her property slip for. And her name's Torsha. One day I hope she sees this, because she was hands down a boss when it came to contraband. Okay. She was a large woman. She had large breasts, very large. Okay. Like, they wouldn't even give her the surgery for it. But, she was indigent. So it was her hustle, baby. She hustled, took care of herself. But those tennis shoes didn't have her name and number on them, and she didn't have a property slip. So we're like, man, what's Torsha? Well, we come back to the dorm, right? Me and Alexa, first ones back in the dorm, cleaning up for everybody, getting our stuff together. And here comes Torsha. She was like, whoo, y'all, I made it. And she reaches, I kid you not, she pulls her shirt, reaches into her bra, and pulls out underneath her breast both tennis shoes. She hid those tennis shoes under her breast because I'm not kidding. I wouldn't have believed it, y'all, if I hadn't seen it myself. And I said, how did you do that? She goes, girl, you know how it is when you get strip search, you just start fast talking. You start fast talking about their kids and, oh, yes, girl. Oh, yeah, let me shake this out. Oh, yeah. And you just keep them moving, distracted while you're, that they can't focus on what they're doing. She said, and that's how I kept it from, because she was butt naked with those shoes under her breast, girl. It was phenomenal. It is one of the best stories to come out of lockdown. She did get us all in trouble, though, because she also stole all the property cards and got our dorm tore up again. Stole them, just took all of them, because there's a master property card for everybody. Took them. And then the next week, she also broke into the pill line and stole a bunch of medication.
Tosha was out of control.
Tosha was out of control. Those are stories for another time. But y'all pulling out a whole pair of tennis shoes, man.
That's pretty impressive. I made it through the strip search room one time. My friend and I had this master plan. Well, we worked in the kitchen and we found somebody's stash that they probably had stashed to take to steal themselves, but it was a bunch of sugar and sweet tea. And I made it through the strip shack with that stuff, but it was just like you. The way they stripped us all together was so highly ineffective. I didn't have the luxury of being able just to have the stuff on me, but right. Just the fact that there was enough in there that we just passed things back and forth, which I think that's how we kept all our contraband during these lockdowns. And I'm not saying anything that the prison doesn't know. Right. These lockdowns are for show. They're completely ineffective. The staff goes crazy if they find something like shoes, contraband shoes that you don't have a property slip for, that might be hidden somewhere in the dorm. But the very first lockdown I experienced, I remember telling my parents at visitation, if I had a 22, I could have gotten it through that lockdown.
Right. Right. It's because they're focused on throwing Jesus away in the trash. Right. Grandma's letters. When I know last week or maybe the week before, I had mentioned the ex-girlfriend that had the affair with a female officer. Well, let me tell you something. While we're getting searched, like Marci said earlier, while we're getting searched in the gym or the chapel, they're searching the dorm. They're flipping over the beds. They're flipping over. We used to have bookcases. Like, they're digging and looking. Let me tell you what happened. I just moved into a bed in the back bedroom. That was a bedroom off to the side of the day room. Just moved in there. And that woman and her friends searched my cubicle. And you know me, I'm very meticulous. Every week I would do a full check of my bed, looking for, because people set each other up. They'll tape stuff under your bed. And if it's in your possession, it's yours and you're getting in trouble for it. So I'd always, go under my bed and look under, make sure nobody taped needles or blades. Now, what do I mean by blades? We used to get safety razors, but if you take tweezers, you can peel the layers of the razor off, right? People would hide them in their gums, or they'd keep them on them just for safety and cutting up peppers or pickles, or maybe just a light slice to somebody's face. But anyway, I'm sitting there. Me and Alexa, we're sitting there waiting to go back to the dorm. And her and that other lady walk in with a latex glove, Marci, full of razors, full. And I said, girl, look what they found. And so they're and they're looking over the wall where we're at. And I'm like, man, somebody's fixing to get in trouble. Oh my God. And so they're really like telling this sergeant, he was one of our cool sergeants. He was real laid back. He was also kind of dirty. He was having an affair with somebody too. Right. But he was chill about a lot of stuff. And he was like, nah, he grabbed it and he threw it in the trash. He said, no, whatever. He tells me later, a week later, he's like, hey, Toon, Major Bond. And I said, about what? He said, man, Miss So-and-so and Miss So-and-so found a rubber glove full of razors in your outlet, where you plug your stuff in. So what they would do is they would unscrew it and look in there to see if anybody hid anything inside the outlet. Well, this girl that lived in the dorm, because we got switched out beds, she hoarded razors. Nobody knew why. Amy hoarded razors, not the Amy watching. She used it for artwork, really. And he was like, they wanted to write you up, put you in SEG and all this stuff. And I said, Toon? That's not Toon's. There's no way. She just moved into that bed too. Throw it in the trash. Thank God for that. I mean, it was a whole glove.
Seriously, because if you had something, you wouldn't have left it in your cubicle.
Exactly. I wouldn't. And so guess what? It taught me a powerful lesson. Every time I moved into a cubicle, I always checked it, but I never thought to unscrew the outlet cover.
I found a stash of Free World makeup taped into the back corner of my cubicle leg in a new cubicle one time that I might not have found, except I just loved to be under my bed in there.
Mhm.
Like that was the only, I really loved it. If we had any decent law, I was hanging out under the bed, reading, whatever. And that's why I had laid down into the, under the bed and reached back, and there it was. I was like,
There
oh
it
my
was.
gosh. So, and I sold it. I sold it. I made like $40 in commissary.
That's a good
I got
deal.
rid of it quick, but it was Free World eyeshadow, which y'all don't think is that big of a deal, but it's a
It
major
is.
disciplinary case that it's a serious offense. So I rarely kept Free World makeup. Sometimes I did have Free World eyeshadow, but I didn't keep any of that. I got rid of it. Uh,
Sell it and make a
yeah,
good
I
good
sold it.
penny off of it,
I
yeah.
didn't know who had been in the bed before me. I didn't know the situation. So, yeah, someone was asking, what does indigent mean? And so
Yeah.
indigent is just a term for someone that doesn't have any means to support themselves. So in Texas prisons, you don't get paid. We solely rely on our family and friends on the outside to send money. So everybody's broke. And some people are blessed enough to have people on the outside that A, have the means to send money, and B, have the will to send money in, because it takes both of those things. And then there are lots of people that don't have that, right? So
Yeah.
that's what indigent.
Yeah. So they got to hustle. They got to sell some services, whether it's drawing or washing clothes or, like you would out here. So, yeah, Torsha was the master of it.
Yeah, and you could get that was a hustle hiding stuff. Or if she had, hey, I had a roommate that was well endowed up here, and she was able to pack a whole tube sock.
Yeah.
We would pack a sock, but we would pack it just halfway full or a third way full and roll it around. And that's how we would pass stuff across the unit, make care packages for our friends on the other side of the unit. But she could take you could pack an entire tube sock, and she could just put it right in her bra. So, hey, I have another contraband boob story
Oh, yeah.
about,
I love
uh,
boob stories.
yeah, it was, my girlfriend wanted a bag of cereal. They had just come out with like for a limited time. They had the cinnamon toast crunch
Oh, yeah.
version,
I
and
ate a
they
whole
were,
bag and threw up.
yeah, yeah, they were so good, and we could make cinnamon rolls with those. Those were amazing. But my girlfriend wanted a bag from commissary. She wasn't going to store yet, and with that kind of stuff, it will sell out. So it will sell out before her dorm even gets to go to the store. So I bought the bag, and I took it to my friend that lived with her at our job. But how do you get an entire bag of cereal? Well, I wasn't quite this big. I was about 50 pounds less than now. And I made myself a pair of boobs out of cereal and put the cereal right in my
Nice.
bag, in my bra. So yeah, that's definitely we figured out how to get things done in there. What else about lockdown?
Um,
Any final thoughts about lockdown? Do y'all have any questions about lockdown? We need to hit the basics. Can you make phone calls during lockdown?
well,
No.
I guess, wait a minute. Well, no, because they turned the phones off. So I'm assuming they'll turn access off on no, because Serena called me on the tablet.
So with the tablets, is that going to change the game up? Can they talk from their tablets then?
I guess so, because she called me all
She's
through
on
their
lockdown.
lockdown. Yeah.
So isn't that something? Well, that's kind of a bonus because we couldn't call.
Right.
We couldn't shower, and somebody else brought up about taking a shower in a bowl, and
Yep.
that's how we did it. We would go
Oh,
take
yeah.
our bowl, fill it with water. I mean, you had to take, sometimes you could do it in your cubicle and put your gown on and completely wash your body underneath your gown. Other times, if it was kind of better law, you could actually go stand in the restroom area over a drain in a bathroom stall. Like our bathroom stall had a drain right there and it was next to the sink. So you could have someone at the sink handing you cups of water and you could almost take a full shower that way. So yeah,
Those are called hoe baths or bird baths?
well, it depends on if you're a hoe or if you're a bird.
So I took a lot of hoe baths.
Apparently so. Apparently so. So, yeah. Does anybody, if anybody has any final questions, we'll answer them. But we also need to think about what we want to talk about next week. I can't.
Marcy, I had to remind you that I'm going to the Juvenile Justice Center next Wednesday at this time to talk to the girls, to talk about their new program and share my journey. So whatever we talk about, it's going to have to be pre-recorded so that folks know that.
Well, this is a good opportunity then for us to have a guest because the pre-recordings work well with guests. And I have like a list of people that I've been wanting to talk to. So that we should let's think about that. Yeah.
And I want to point Amy out here. If this is Amy that I know, she was, gosh, I don't want to tell your business, but you're saying you want to come on the show. If this is the right Amy, we were in the Texas Youth Commission together. So not many folks that were there with me ever want to talk about that. And she's done some videos on other channels about that. If that's the right Amy. It is. She said it is. So maybe we can connect to Amy.
Yeah, Amy is watching on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And so if you message me, can we just message each other freely on that app? I'm so new to the app. So message me, Amy, and we will connect that way. And maybe that's something we could talk about is the youth prisons. And I have another guest then that might join us also talking about that.
Well, it'll be very fitting because I'll be at the youth facility in Waco.
Let's do it. Let's talk about the youth prisons, and Amy, message me and let's figure it out. Okay. Final thoughts?
Final thoughts. I'm sorry to everybody that I said, no, I'm not going to carry your stuff to the gym. Okay. It really was to minimize my stress that day because I was so stressed out, not because I'm a selfish jerk.
Toonche, when I stayed at your place and I was going to be there for several days during South by Southwest, and I have my studio, I have my backpack, I have my luggage, I have my ring light, like all of it. And your story, you're not on the first floor.
I know.
And we hit the bottom of the stairs and you took 2 steps and I had to stop you. I said, say, you better get some of this stuff.
And guess what? And I did. I was like, oh my God, you're right. Now, see, you bringing up something because I had an ex-girlfriend that roasted me for 2 days because I didn't help her with the 18 bags that she came to visit with. So thanks for touching on that. She's watching and she's going to be like, see, I told you. You're a
guys.
Jerk.
We are so happy that you guys joined us. We appreciate you all so much. We are live every single Wednesday night on the Recyard Women's Prison Podcast. Please don't forget, if you're watching us live, hit that share button when we leave. And if you are listening, guys, we love to hear your reviews. We would appreciate them. And ask questions on any of our platforms and we'll address them here. Yeah?
That'd be great.
Okay, till next time.